Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Ms. Coakley, would you call the roll for us?
Mr. Green. Mrs. Heinz.
Here.
Mr. Derman.
Here.
Mr. Loop.
Here.
Mr. Harrell.
Here.
Mr. Nation.
Here.
Mrs. Richardson.
Here.
Mr. Winkler.
Here.
Mrs. Drucker.
Here.
Mr. Bettencourt.
Here.
Mrs. Lamy.
Here.
Mr. Hersey.
Here.
Mr. Bro.
Here.
Mr. Kuzan.
Here.
Mrs. Page.
Okay. What I'm going to ask now if everyone would please, board members would join the meeting, please. And if you'd please rise, and Ms. Lamy is going to lead us in the invocation and pledge.
Dear Father, thank you for bringing us here safely tonight. Lord, we ask you to be with us. Lord, to give us wisdom and discernment in our decision-making and our conversation. Lord, help us to keep our students, our teachers, our community at the forefront of our decision-making. Thank you for bringing the mentor teachers and the teacher residents here, Lord, and I just pray a special prayer of gratitude and provision for them, Lord, for their investment into our students and their desire to make a difference. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Lamy. I would like to welcome you all to our board meeting tonight. This is a special board meeting. The first thing on our agenda is public comments, 3 minutes, and we have one person signed up, and that is Cynthia Rester.
Good evening, Board. I'd like to start off by saying that each of you, as elected officials, are to be leaders in our community, to be looked up to for the position that you're in. The main reason why I'm here tonight is I believe that Ms. Sharon Drucker can no longer be an effective leader in this community. She can no longer sit in judgment of students, teachers, administrators, whatever that may be. She has robbed the community of their representation in District 9. Should she choose not to resign, we will take the next step forward as a community and do a recall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next item is an executive session has been requested pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statutes 42:17, 1 and 4 concerning school board member District 9. I need a motion to go into executive session. I have a motion from Mr. Bettencourt. Do I have a second? To go in? I have a second from Ms. Winkler. Mr. Winkler, sorry. Do we have any questions from board members?
Ms. Hines, yes. I respectfully request that we, my fellow board members, that we do not go into executive session regarding this. I personally do not believe that Louisiana Revised Statute 42:17 pertains to public officials. I believe it pertains to private citizens who are employees of public agencies. So to protect them, this is, I believe that we need to keep this completely out in the public and out in front of the public. And I think we're doing the public a disservice if we go into executive session. So I would respectfully ask that my fellow board members join me in voting to keep this in the public eye. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments from board members?
I would like to second that.
Well, it's not a motion.
It's not a motion?
No. We have a motion to go into executive session. If you'd like to speak to the motion, Ms. Richardson.
I can't really add to the motion other than what reciprocate what Mr. Nation has said. So I just would like to reiterate that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Lane?
I also agree with Mr. Nations. I just feel it's important for us to be transparent, and there's not really anything that we would need to say that the public couldn't be privy to.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Bettencourt?
It's an Attorney General's opinion that in a case like this, a school board can go into executive session, particularly if the person involved requests it. And once we come out of executive session, the public will be involved once again, and questions can be asked or what have you. So I think it's appropriate on the motion that I moved.
All right, anyone else? All right, do we have any comments from the
Yep, I do.
public? Mr. Nation?
Mrs. Heinz, did Mrs. Drucker request this to go into executive session?
I have not specifically asked her.
Okay, so, and, thank you.
Do we have any other comments?
It doesn't matter one way or another. It's already out in the press. So however you would like to proceed, I'm fine with it.
Thank you. All right, do we have any comments from the public? All right, all those in favor of the motion to go into executive session, we're going to take a voice vote on this. We have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All right, so the motion fails, so we will not conduct it in executive session. All right, so we'll move on to our next item, which is consideration of a resolution. We have consideration of a resolution or action pertaining to School Board Member District 9. And I will read that motion. I'm sorry, the resolution. Whereas the St. Tammany Parish School Board members are sworn into office by affirming the statement they will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and the state of Louisiana, and whereas the St. Tammany Parish School Board and School System Administration require all school system employees to provide his or her immediate supervisor and the superintendent or his designee with a copy of information concerning any arrest, indictment, bill of information, or affidavit for committing any offense other than a minor traffic violation within 24 hours of him or her arrest or service of summons, and whereas St. Tammany Parish School Board members are accountable to the citizens of St. Tammany Parish and to all of our stakeholders and should be held to a higher standard as elected officials, and whereas District 9 School Board member Sharon Lowe Drucker's actions while shopping at a local retailer appear to be criminal, and whereas Mrs. Drucker's actions to conceal information from the school board, the school system administration, and her constituents following the issuance of a summons were improper and unfair to her constituents, the school system, and the community as a whole, and as a result incorrectly led some people in the community to draw the unfortunate conclusion that the school board and school system administration were aides in her concealment. And whereas this embarrassing situation has caused and will continue to cause a needless distraction from the school system and school board's primary obligations and responsibilities, and caused some community members to have doubts about their representation in District 9, and whereas the school board believes Mrs. Drucker's apology, while late, was offered with sincerity, members still believe Mrs. Drucker should be held accountable for her actions. Now therefore be it resolved that the St. Tammany Parish School Board members respectfully ask Mrs. Drucker, School Board Member District 9, to resign her position from the St. Tammany Parish School Board. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the official minutes of this board, with a copy being sent to Mrs. Drucker.
Also moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Nation and a second.
I'd like to second
by
it.
Ms. Lamey. All right, comments from board members regarding the resolution. And Christy, we will be able to queue up to speak to this. If you would queue up, please. All right. Mr. Nation, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. This whole situation is very, very sad.
Ms. Lamey.
And I take this could go without saying, but I don't want it to. I take absolutely no personal pleasure in offering the motion for this resolution. And I hope members of the public that are here tonight, members in her district, and members across the parish also will refrain from taking any glee or pleasure in the misfortunes of others. It's a very sad situation, but it's a situation that I feel like needs to be addressed. I had hoped that Mrs. Drucker would do the right thing and find the courage, as I said to her in an email the week that we learned that the district attorney's office placed her in a diversion program, would find the courage to place the parents, the children, and the teachers of this great school system ahead of her board membership, and to focus on her personal life and her private life, and then, should she so choose and should the voters so concur, she could at a later time, some years down the road, maybe seek office on this board or other agencies in the parish. But unfortunately, she has refused steadfastly to do that. We cannot send a message to the students, the 38,000 students of this school system, that we accept this as this is acceptable behavior. I also want to make it very clear in offering the motion for this resolution, as I've said to several privately in the community, this is not a moral judgment from any of us, but certainly from me. I do not stand I do not make a moral judgment. This is simply a political judgment. And by political judgment, I mean this is, as was said tonight and has been said across the community, she can no longer function at present in a leadership position on this board. Stealing is just something that we would not tolerate from any of our students who would steal at our schools or any of our employees. And certainly we should have the courage tonight now to hold her accountable, as I would expect I would be held accountable if the situation was reversed. And with that, I yield the floor.
Mr. Breaux.
I do not support this resolution for several reasons. First, I believe in paragraph 2, it states that an employee of the school system has certain responsibilities. Well, I asked the attorney, are board members employees of the school system? No. So the resolution is flawed from the very start. I've talked to some of my constituents, and they say, oh, if she tried to hide something, then certainly we have to address that. She had no responsibility to reform the board. That is not part of her legal obligations. Secondly, I think that she has been punished enough, even though a diversion is not an admission of guilt. She's been punished enough, she's been embarrassed, and I think that this board jumping on and piling on is wrong. I think it's just a mob mentality that I think we have to resist. Thirdly, her voters were well aware of it. I went to some of the meetings where her opponent was clearly bringing this out to the people at the meetings. So it was out there for the public to know that she was accused of this. They overwhelmingly voted for her. It's not our determination that she should resign. That's the determination of her constituents, and if her constituents so desire, there are measures to do that. And I would urge them that if they feel strongly enough, that that's their responsibility. It's not the responsibility of this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breaux. Mr. Betancourt?
Thank you, Mrs. Hines. The resolution presented, part of it Mr. Breaux just pointed out, the resolution to me rehashes everything that's already been in the Advocate and other newspapers. The school board, with Mrs. Hines as president, has asked Mrs. Drucker for a resignation. Mrs. Drucker has declined to do that. That, to me, is up to the voters of District 9 if they choose to recall this school board member. The resolution to me, it just rehashes everything. Item 4 on our agenda says consideration of a resolution or action pertaining to school board member District 9. I would like to offer as the action an alternative motion that we censure school board member from District 9, Ms. Sharon Lowe Drucker. And a censure is an official expression of disapproval. And that, I would like to offer that in the form of a motion and hope that I could get a second on that so that this school board, this system can move forward. Thank you.
So you're making a formal motion, Mr. Betancourt? All right. Mr. Betancourt has made a motion that we have a censor instead of the resolution. Do we have a second to that? All right. It fails for lack of second. Ms. Lamy?
I just want to reiterate that my position on this is certainly not personal to Ms. Drucker in any way, and it's been extremely, extremely difficult for me because I believe in second chances and forgiveness and not judging other people. However, I feel it's my duty as an elected official to stand for truth and what's right, and we took an oath. And of all the people who have reached out to me, which have been many, and I'm not in her district, there was only one that had support. Every other person wanted to know why we were not taking a stand against something that was very obviously wrong and sending a message to our students, especially our older students who are very well aware and cognizant of what's happening. And then we try to hold them to a standard and an accountability, at the same time explain to them that the officials that have taken an oath to make policies for them that directly affect them are not really held to the same accountability, because even though this, well, that, and it's really not their responsibility to do this, and there's really not an ethical thing here because of this, and so we kind of, that's wrong. And so as difficult it is for me to say this, I feel very strongly that we need to stay with this resolution. I do agree it's the voters' responsibility to do a recall. I understand that. The point of this resolution is for us to take a stand and say, this is how we feel very strongly, and we want to make sure that all the students understand that and parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lamy. Mr. Hersey?
I'd just like to say ditto to Mr. Bro on everything you just said. I appreciate it, sir, and I agree with you. Thank you.
Ms. Richardson? Thank you, Mr. Hersey.
Thank you. I would like to first address the phrase mob mentality. I think it's really important, if I'm going to promote the resolution, that you hear my heart. I, like Ms. Lamy, am very much for second chances, forgiveness, and grace. But as elected officials, we are public servants. You have asked for, you have basically placed your trust in me as your school board member, as well as the other 14 people that you're looking at, and that is very, very important. And it's our job to represent the interests of our constituents. And while I represent District 7, hundreds of people have asked a question of this board: what are they going to do about it? What is their opinion on the matter? Therefore, it was with that heart in mind that a resolution was suggested, so that as whatever unified message this board could produce, that the community, they deserve to hear from this board how we feel about the matter. So this is certainly not a mob mentality. In fact, my heart is with Ms. Drucker, her family. Most importantly, I do want her to get the help that she needs, but she has been rendered ineffective by her constituents. She has lost their trust. And as a public official, those two qualities are very, very important. I'd like to also say, Mr. Betancourt kind of hit on this, but this is a bigger issue, and it has to do with the Louisiana Board of Ethics. There's not really any policies that hold us to a higher standard. So we have to go after the bigger issue at some point. I, too, like Mr. Nation, take no joy in this special meeting. Secondly, I would like us to see us do what's best for this district. So with that said, I render the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Ms. Drucker? All right. Mr. Winkler?
Yes, there are people in this room who have donated or designated and given up their whole life for the school system to get better. And I think that's what us sitting up here, we want to do. We have to do what's best for the school system. The school system comes first. In order for, I believe that this is going to hurt us in the long run, because basically it's in the public eye, and we're going to go out to that public soon for the bond issues in May. And for all of us up here who are going to go to our constituents, they're going to say, well, you know, what about what's going on up there with you guys? We have to be upfront and do what's best for the system. And I'm sorry for what's happened with this situation, but each one of us wears the black eye when we go out and meet our people. So for the people who are sitting here, who have put in years and years to get this system where it is, we have to go forward. And I think this resolution is the least we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winkler. Mr. Bettencourt?
Thank you again, Mr. Hines. In a little bit of research that I tried to do, and I want to ask our attorney's opinion of this, a censure is a higher level of repudiation than a mere resolution that rehashes things that are already in the public, in the Morning Advocate and other newspapers. I'd ask Mr. Pittman, am I correct in this? What's a higher punishment, if you will?
I don't think I could really speak to, whether or not. It's just something that the board does and speaks to. A censure, a resolution, the resolution itself, So I couldn't speak to one way or another which was a higher. It's just a public review. I think both of them are public review.
Good. Thank you for that opinion or non-opinion. All right, but I still stand by what I've looked up and tried to do a little research on. A censure is a little bit higher form of a repudiation than rehashing in the form of a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bettencourt. Ms. Drucker?
I think everyone here is concerned about the welfare of our children in our school system. We wouldn't be here today. As children, we make mistakes in life, and so do adults. This is my mistake. And I, too, am a mother of a child in our school system. That's the reason why I ran for school board. As our children learn from life experiences, so have I. We teach our children that we are all human, and everyone has made mistakes. When mistakes are made, we don't let it define us, but we heal, learn, and we grow from them. St. Tammany District 9 voters reelected me with 69%, which is higher than what the percentages were when I first ran 4 years ago. The majority of the voters in my district believe that I am a good advocate, even with the negativity of publicity that I had running against my opponent. There's been a small group who have been relentlessly attacking me and have tried to influence people's opinions of me. However, my 30-plus years of hard work in this community and my commitment to volunteerism is what my voters see in me. I've worked very hard these last 4 years with top attendance at school board events and meetings, and I wasn't even on the executive board. That's the pleasure I have in dedication to my district and to the school system. I have represented and served the voters well, and I'm continuing to serve them to the best of my ability now. I sincerely apologize for my mistake, and I'm taking full responsibility by participating in the diversion program. That is no small feat and is not a slap on the wrist. If you know anyone who's been through the diversion program, and that is the punishment that I have to go through. The resolution today that is offered is strictly advisory. The laws that dictate our elected official positions are by statute. So I urge you to go look at that statute, because that's what governs us, not the members of the school board here. I am not resigning my position as District 9 School Board Representative, and I said that in my press release, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
All right, do we have any comments from the public? Mr. Nation, you want to make a?
Yes, ma'am. To the point that's been made over and over and over again, if I were a reporter working, the headline would be Mrs. Drucker, who broke the law by stealing from Walmart, quotes the law, and urges her fellow board members to support the law. And the irony of that cannot be lost on anyone. And the point is, Mrs. Drucker has lost her effectiveness because that statement, I guarantee you, I'm not the only person in this room that would have caught that. Yes, we all make mistakes, but stealing is a willful act. And this is not, and to Mr. Betancourt's point, this is as high a censure. I mean, we could put the word censure on the top. This is a censure of Mrs. Drucker. We are distancing ourselves from her and saying, we do not agree with this. And again, it will be up to her voters. Obviously, it will be, because she has stated just now she, again, stubbornly and steadfastly refuses to do the right thing and is placing the needs, her personal political needs, above the needs of this great school system. And for that, I'm even more deeply saddened tonight than I was when I got here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nation. Ms. Drucker?
Michael Nations, you know, everyone has a right to their opinion. That's why we live in a democracy in the United States. And I wouldn't want to give that up. But that's how you feel. This is the way my commitment is with my position. My voters voted me in, and that's where I'm staying. And I think there's nothing else left to say. I think we've all said our piece.
Any other board members? Comments from the public? If you have a comment, please, would you, one at a time, step to the mic. If you'd state your name and then your comment, please.
Is this on? Retired teacher. I'd hope not to speak, but Ms. Drucker, because of your statement, I feel like I do need to come up here and make a statement. The problem that I had, and that hoped that you would resolve earlier, was that after you were arrested, the newspaper reported that you pled not guilty. So we all gave you the benefit of the doubt. The police report was not available at that time. When the police report was released or asked for, it clearly stated that you admitted that you had stolen the material. So, yes, people knew of the incident, but they did not know that you had said that you were guilty in the police report, that you'd stolen the items because you were trying to save money. As for the difference between censure and this resolution, they're not to be compared. Censure is a statement of a position. The resolution actually asks for an action to be taken, and that is to ask Ms. Drucker to resign, which I think is the right thing to do. The other element is that as a teacher, I believe it's very important that you all be held to at least the same standard that teachers are. It's very difficult for teachers to go before children who make mistakes, and deal with them. It's easy, it would be easy to just wipe your hands of it and not deal with the parents, but they have to do that just about every day. So I hope that you support this, and that whether or not, Ms. Drucker, you decide to resign is not really the issue here. The school board is stating their position and asking you to. That's a pretty strong statement.
Thank you, Ms. Barrios.
Linda Begay. I'm the chairman of the St. Tammany Republican Parish Executive Committee. We have supported and put out a statement to the school board, put it out in the public that we support you in your actions here. When I first became chairman, I was introduced here and I offered y'all the support of the St. Tammany RPEC at that time. We do stand with you in asking for Ms. Drucker's resignation. We know that so many people move to this parish because of the school system. Businesses have their employees move here because of the school system. That reputation was hard-earned and well-earned, and I, for one person, don't want to see that damaged. So I'm here to give you our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Begay. Anyone else? You may come forward next.
Just like to add a few things from earlier. Mr. Breaux and Mr. Hersey, I'm really saddened by what I heard tonight, that you do not believe, as a sitting board member, that you, as an elected official, should be held to a higher standard. You sit in judgment of people, these teachers, on a board, and you don't believe that you should be held to that same standard? I think something's missing there. This resolution that's before the board tonight is meant to send a message to the students, to the constituents, to the entire parish, that you do not support this kind of behavior. The arrogance that is shown by Ms. Drucker is a whole nother story. It's an embarrassment to everyone. I really, really wish you would accept what's happening, take your responsibility, resign, because that's what's best for the school system.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Sherry Coltor. I'm with Parents Against Bullying. At this time, I come as a taxpayer and an advocate. As a taxpayer, we do expect the highest level of transparency from our elected officials. Who would not want that? You are not transparent in anything. You did not give your constituents enough prior notice to what actually happened. And they still did give you a second chance. And then, again, for redundancy, the police report came out. As an advocate, I know for a fact that this entire board sits in judgment of children who have been suspended and who have committed far lesser crimes than something that is chargeable by the police. And how can you sit up there in judgment of children for something they do that is maybe not as bad, maybe it is as bad, but how do you sit up there in judgment of what happens to them for the remainder of the year or the next 2 semesters? I think that's pretty hypocritical. So that is where a lot of people behind this podium does not know that happens, but I do. So I do take issue, and I do support the board, and I do also believe you should resign. Run again after you're done, but you should resign for the integrity of the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Al Rogers, and I've been a United States Marine for 25 years. And the reason I bring that up is because for those 25 years, I've been held to a higher standard. That any actions that I may partake outside of my official duties do hold consequence for my status as a United States Marine. If I were to have committed the same offense as Ms. Drucker, my time and my service as a United States Marine would be in jeopardy. And I think it's important because I think all board members here have that same responsibility to the citizens here. It's also important for me because I plan on retiring here. And one of the main reasons that I plan on retiring here is we have 3 small children, and the school district's reputation was as such that I knew that I could count on the board members here to give my children the best education that's possible. I am not here to stand in judgment of Ms. Drucker. That is for, the judicial system. She is paying her service via the court system. However, from where I stand, I also feel like, ma'am, that you also deserve to pay some sort of punishment towards the constituents that elected you. And I also ask that you take a hard look at what's happened and maybe revise your decision and consider stepping down. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else who would like to come forward? Thank you for your comments. Mr. Rogers. Anyone else? Any other comments from board members? All right, if not, we'll take a vote. We have a vote, consideration of a resolution or action, or a resolution pertaining to school board member District 9. The resolution has been read. We have a motion by Mr. Nation and a second by Ms. Lamey. So we're going to vote on the machine. Whether you are in favor of the resolution would be a yay, against the resolution, a nay. Would all members please cast their votes at this time? I'm sorry, we have technical difficulties. Right. Vote's taken. All right, the vote is 11 yea, 4 nay, so the resolution passes. There being no further business to come before the board, we will adjourn, and our committee as a whole meeting will begin in, let's take about a 5-minute break. Thank you.